It's about not only helping our environment, but also helping ourselves and our communities. So today we're going to talk about a variety of topics within zero waste. So first, looking at the problem of waste in the world, talking about COVID-19 and zero waste movement. What is the zero waste movement as a whole? Why we should pursue zero waste habits. And I want to give you very practical tips on how to go zero waste. I want it to be worth your while, some very specific ways to change habits, small to large, and at the end, we'll have a long Q&A discussion time. So, okay, again, my goal, inspiration, knowledge, wherever you're at in this journey. We're all still learning. I'm still learning 3 years into it, despite all the presentations I've given and the things I've done. I'm still changing my habits. I'm still learning. So that's my goal for today. A little bit about my story. I grew up in Wyoming. I did a lot of hunting and just was out in nature a lot. In Wyoming, there's only 500,000 people in the entire state. So we really don't see a lot of plastic waste as much there. But coming out of that and moving and traveling, you see it around the world and the effects of climate change that come with it. So let's talk about the problem of waste, specifically plastic waste in the world. It is rampant, right? Maybe in the US, we don't see it as much because we have systems in place that can whisk away our debris somewhere. We don't have to see it all the time. But most of the world deals with it on a daily basis, seeing the waste and the trash. So a friend of mine has this quote: "The experiment of convenience living is a failure." So with the production of plastic and petroleum-based products, people had good intentions, trying to make life easier, make things faster, make shopping faster and cheaper, right? Packaging with plastic is cheaper for the consumer. But without realizing the massive effects that would have on an environment because of plastic. So we see how plastic has invaded our water, invaded our world. Every year, the average American produces more than 250 pounds of plastic waste. That's just plastic waste. It's not paper packaging, it's not tin or metal packaging. That's just plastic waste. And as I've, over the years, been learning and trying to adjust my habits, I see how a lot of businesses or corporations from the top down, they have created a system where it's really hard for us, even if we're very intentional as consumers, to avoid plastic. They've created a system that makes it almost impossible or just very difficult for the average consumer to refuse plastic waste. So in the beginning, I felt I think I had a bit of environment guilt. I was the one at fault for all of this plastic I was throwing away, I was consuming. But the longer I try to change my habits, the more I see it set up for failure or for consumers. And looking at that responsibility we should be pressuring corporations from the top down to make changes so that it's not our responsibility as consumers to deal with their waste. So I'll show you this. Just if one video could sum up the waste problem. This is a beach somewhere in the world. This was at the end of 2018. And it's an entire beach just flooded with plastic, mostly plastic waste. So we might not see that as much here because of ocean currents and where waste ends up, and because we have a very wealthy system to whisk away our trash. but most of the world deals with this on a daily basis. And we've learned that plastic doesn't biodegrade or compost. It breaks down into what's called microplastics. So with weathering, with sun, with time, the pieces break up, and we're seeing more and more beaches where the sand is made of plastic pieces instead of rocks and just nature as it should be. So this is the end life cycle of plastic, is just microplastics, microparticles. And we've seen how plastic affects wildlife, how they try to interact, how it appears as food to birds, and they feed themselves, they feed their young, but they starve to death, and the plastic doesn't leave their body. And I mean, we've seen countless examples of harmed wildlife. And we see how plastic impacts human health. Not only if we think about just food in plastic and how toxic it is, like if you heat something up in plastic, the toxins that go into your food and into your body are just detrimental. But if you breathe in any burnt plastic, water pollution, if we're drinking microplastics that we can't see, the effects and the research on human health, it's just massive, the negative effects. And as I mentioned, it's a shared experience for the whole world, for all of us. Right now, we're more aware of global shared experiences than ever. And, just seeing how climate change has impacted our pandemic situation that we're in, and plastic waste has contributed to climate change. And, my students from the Marshall Islands, as the oceans are rising, their island every year is getting smaller and smaller, their islands. And when they have a flood, the entire island is covered in trash that they have to clean up all the time. And then the photo on the right is from some friends of mine who live in Indonesia. Because they don't have a very skilled cleanup system, infrastructure in place, consumers are left with the plastic trash and all the trash. So there's nowhere to put it. A lot of it gets dumped in the river, and a lot of it gets put in the streets and set on fire every day. Well, because it's hot there, people have their windows open and they're breathing in these toxic fumes, and there's just been a surge of medical problems in the community because they're breathing in this toxic plastic fumes. Just with people trying to deal with a never-ending cycle of trash, of plastic waste that's become their responsibility. I did a lot of research the last couple of weeks about, zero waste and our current situation, because since March, my plastic intake has increased a lot. I try to support local businesses. I do takeout. They won't take my reusable container just for fear of contamination. And so I have increased a lot of plastic in my life. And just, what is a solution as we go forward into the future? What are we learning? We're only a few months into this situation. What are scientists learning about plastic and the virus? And, a lot of research I did is about plastic industry is really exploiting fears about the virus right now because they see an opportunity for economic gain. They see an opportunity for, they can make money. And all my research about, the virus and living on surfaces, it just showed that on plastic, the virus lasts longer than most other surfaces. Actually, it showed that plastic and stainless steel are the two surfaces that it lasts the longest on. Things like cardboard or paper, not as long. And we're seeing, you can look up these photos of the PPE, disposable masks, disposable gloves, how much already, just in a few months, this waste has attacked the world, just showing up on beaches everywhere around the world, and in your drainage system, you know, if they get tossed on the street. The growth of waste just from pandemic related disposables is immense, because we're all going through this together, the entire globe. And if you don't have the resources, you're probably getting free disposable masks you can only wear a few times, and then they end up in trash or dropped somewhere. And then this photo's from just a couple months ago in Hong Kong. Of course, in this photo, we're seeing tin, which is more recyclable, but just showing like the massive amounts of packaging that's being used in comparison to last year. So the price of petroleum has fallen dramatically due to the decrease in water, land, and air transport, which is favoring the manufacturing of virgin plastics over recycled plastics by the plastic industry. So we're seeing a huge production, again, just massive compared to last year, of virgin plastics and using petroleum and instead of using recycled plastics, because it's cheaper to use virgin plastic right now. I have an amazing article about 3 weeks ago. This article is released, and I'd love to send it to everyone who attended. Excuse me. But 119 scientists from 18 countries signed this document to talk about reusables during the pandemic, because people are so concerned about how much packaging and plastic, single-use plastic, is being used. So they talk about reusable containers do not increase the chance of virus transmission. Primarily, virus is spread from the air, those droplets in the air, rather than surfaces. But basically, the idea is if plastic and stainless steel have the same amount of, it's a 3-day period that the virus is active on the surface, you should assume that your plastic container or your reusable stainless steel container have the same amount of danger. And you should just assume that everything that you see in the store or wherever you are, even if it's something reusable, has the same amount of danger to you. So it's not like one is safer. We see something wrapped in plastic, it must be sterile, right? But really, if you think about the cycle of plastic packaging, it comes from the manufacturer, gets shipped on pallets, you don't know who touches it, who handles it. All those plastic cups and straws show up at the coffee shop. You go through the drive-through, the barista, makes it. Of course, they're wearing gloves right now, but really, you don't know where that's come from. Whereas they talk about in this article, it would be safer for us to be using reusables, metals that can be washed, because that soap or detergent can do something in that process to minimize the amount of virus on the surface. So ultimately, we've tried to take, Starbucks, coffee shops, lots of places have stopped allowing you to bring reusable cups, reusable shopping bags, because they're worried about contamination, but the contamination level is the same for reusables as a plastic that's been shipped around the world or around the country. So as we go forward, how do we incorporate environmentally friendly situations so that we're not creating more pandemics and creating more climate change, and instead taking better care of the earth as we go forward. So I will send this article. It's super informative as we go forward. Okay, let's talk about what the zero waste movement really is, the specifics. So there's a many big names in zero waste who started the movement, but one of the major ones is Bea Johnson. She's a French woman who lives in California with her family, and she started this process of reducing her family's waste. She has it's her husband and her 2 kids and her dog. And now they make a jar of total of waste each year, which is insane to think about how that's possible, right? It's definitely not where I'm at in my life, but this book is amazing. I highly recommend it. Just the information she has and her experience. That's where I started to learn, and my eyes were open for the first time to realize how much waste I was participating in, how much I just was blind to it. I just, throw stuff away, the magic garbage truck comes, and I don't feel responsibility for it. But now, after reading her book, I just feel like there's another option, and we can be participants individually, take responsibility, and as a collective come together to pressure corporations to change their habits, to take responsibility for their own waste and carbon usage. So let's look at, so the global zero waste movement is this idea that as individuals, as a society, we should reduce all of this plastic usage, and the idea of bulk bins, right, for shopping for dry goods, liquid bulk for your oils, vinegars, even personal care, shampoos, soap, etc. And again, we'll talk about coronavirus because it's changed a lot of things. Before we get to that, just this idea that we can change the structure of businesses so that as consumers, we can go home with zero waste or with only compostable waste instead of plastics. Talking about coronavirus, and a lot of bulk sections have shut down, even in Spokane. You can't bring your reusable bag, or they pre-packaged everything. But across Europe during this time, a lot of bulk stores stayed open and haven't seen the adverse effects. Compared, it's not like they had more or less virus cases than here. And just going forward, it's like, how do we address that? Learning that maybe a reusable container or bag that can be washed at someone's home will have less chance of transmitting virus than all the plastic that we have. And in the midst of the pandemic, Chicago's first zero waste store was set to open in April. They postponed, and they opened a few weeks ago. So in the midst of the pandemic, a zero waste store is opening, package-free store, and they're encouraging people to bring their own items. So a lot is actually happening during the pandemic, because we've seen that with our habits of destroying the environment and our habits of taking over more and more wild spaces and destroying habitats, we're encountering these new viruses that we've never encountered before. So really, it's an effect of climate change that's impacted every single one of us to some degree. And we've seen like a surge of intentionality from people to say, oh, we need to change our habits to be environmentally friendly, to reduce our waste. And so it's exciting to see these changes coming faster, because the pandemic is impacting all of us, and it's difficult for so many, for a lot of people, extremely difficult. So it's like, how do we prevent this from happening again? And how do we change our habits and reduce all of the negative effects of climate change? So you can look at their website. It's amazing, their store. Over the last couple of years, we've seen just the awareness about plastic waste and all of these just awareness and changes, massive changes, like I knew that the Buckingham Palace banning all single-use or temporary use plastic from that entire corporation. Basically, it's a corporation. So just the awareness has grown, and it's amazing. And I've been learning, just my eyes are open to the waste problem, There's a new company called Loop, and of course they're in the midst of the pandemic too, trying to figure out how this process will work. But it's going back to that milkman system, milk delivery, where it comes in a reusable container, your Haagen-Dazs, your Clorox wipes, and then you, after you've used the product, you don't even need to wash it. You put it in a special bin. They have a curbside pickup. They wash it, sanitize it, and then refill it. Which is, again, as we talk about the virus, you see that article from the scientists about this actually might be a safer option because it's being cleaned in the process and less contact, across the way. But in terms of the environmental impact, it's definitely better than a linear, right? Instead of a linear economy where we make something, we take the petroleum, we make the virgin plastic, we use it temporarily, we throw it away, and it either ends up for energy, for burning, or in the landfill. It's just a linear system instead of like this, a circular economy where we're reusing something and it has a lifespan that continues and continues. So we don't have to harvest virgin products from the earth again. And plastic, the emissions, we are some companies are going back in time. So Snapple's changing to a plastic bottle from a glass bottle, which is so surprising in 2020. But this increase of plastic is just going to increase climate change, negative effects and impacts, and we need to be proactive to move away from that kind of lifestyle. So when I started this process, these were some of my first purchases that I had no packaging whatsoever, except for fruit stickers. I would take my own jars for dry goods or for liquid goods, take my own produce bags. And yeah, it was just really amazing as I learned these habits to realize it was possible to at least reduce all of the garbage I was throwing in the bin every week, every day. I could reduce that. I had some power, as a consumer. So let's look at the benefits of zero waste living. Talking about environmentalism, number one, we've already talked about that, but also on like a personal lifestyle thing, saving time, saving money. So my example for this is I used to use paper towels a few years ago, and I used to use Ziploc bags. I would use them up. I would have an empty box. I would have to go back to the store to give my money for products that were going to be thrown away. Even if I washed the Ziploc bags, eventually they break down. Now I don't use those kind of single-use or temporary use products, and so I don't spend time or money on them anymore. And it's from small things like Ziploc bags, just to larger items as well, just getting rid of that disposable mindset and being more of an owner of the things I have. It's also helped me eat healthier because I can avoid the processed food that comes in packaging. It's more fun, just the interaction that I have with people in the store. Like if I go up to a counter or to the local bread maker and I have my bag, I get to have a conversation with them. I get to interact with people, and with that build community. So there's so many benefits of zero waste living. And I always have a caveat at the bottom about how everyone is different. So example, my parents live in Wyoming State. They don't have stores with bulk sections that are package free. So much of their produce is shipped in. My mom really wants to be more zero waste, but the resources aren't there for her yet. For my own personal life, in the past year, I've become a single parent, and I'm expecting another child soon. I have 2 girls, and when life is more difficult and you're a single parent, I don't have as much time or mental space to, you know, just be relaxed in my shopping or what have you. And when in first trimester, I'm very sick and super tired and don't want to cook and it's really hard to cook, I ordered a lot of takeout and delivery just because there's kind of survival mindset. And I think different lifestyles, different situations, you know, if you have the time, you have the money, and you're living a very relaxed life where you don't have to hustle, it's easier, right? Because you do have to work against it. There's a system set up of plastic packaging that is working against us, and you have to be very intentional. Even though I save a lot of time and money by not buying disposables, it's still hard to shop bulk because it takes a little time, extra time for me as a parent. So just lifestyle, you know, wherever you're at, everyone's in such a different place. And right now we're all under a lot of stress, especially if you don't have a job at this time. So I always just say it's like not a guilt related thing, because those with more time and resources can succeed at this more. And we should be pressuring corporations to change so that as consumers, it's not our burden. We don't have to work harder to seek out plastic-free options, or we don't have to work harder to refill our containers. Simplifying has helped so much in my life. I'm so thankful for just simplifying things through zero waste practices. But again, it's not always perfect or easy. So I put that out there because there shouldn't be any guilt. If you're going through a lot of stress in your life or changes, like all of us right now, we're just trying to make small changes where we can and work on the kind of like political changes to change the way the system works for us. So let's look at specifics. I really want to give you specific tools to help you apply these things so you can simplify. And through reducing my trash, I've simplified just my whole life, the time I spend shopping, the time, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's just simplifying a lot of things. So the 5 R's of zero waste: refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. Let's talk about each of those. Okay, first is refuse. Refuse what you don't need. Every time we take an item, we create a demand for more. I love this image for myself, the idea of being an empowered consumer. So sure, there's a system in place, but where I can, I have the power to refuse single-use plastics, especially. I have the power to, you know, to say no. And if we start doing that as a collective, businesses won't make money, and so they'll change their practices. So, you know, refusing the single-use plastics. Right now, some stores are requiring you to take a plastic bag, so I understand the difficulty of that. And a lot of places aren't allowing you to bring your reusable shopping bags, but if they have a paper bag option, at least choose that, you know. And, you know, refusing receipts, refusing, you know, if there's like any freebie stuff that's just cheap plastic, cheap handouts that you throw away or you don't even keep after an event or something like that, refusing that. You know, we don't need single-use items or temporary use items in our life. We don't need to be filled with clutter in our homes. Reduce what you do need. Okay, so I put up here about just energy, but right now I'm thinking about our lives in the pandemic, and you know, we have to, you know, do so many things to stay healthy. You know, just wherever you're at, reducing what you do need. For me, I think too about food. I used to buy a lot of food, and I would have a lot of vegetable spoilage. And with time, I learned, like, oh yeah, I'm just buying too much food to fill up my fridge. I don't have to fill up my fridge. So just in every aspect of your consuming life, whether it's food, whether it's products, do you need it, you know? Or can you reduce those things you do need so there isn't a waste? And reuse, I put reuse and repair. So this is like the biggest, I feel like it's one of the biggest things of zero waste. Thinking about items that are reusable, that have a lifetime of use for you. Your water bottle that you refill, your reusable shopping bags that you take in. And I think right now for us, we have to wear our masks, you know? So instead of, I saw someone today I dropped someone off at the airport. Anyways, someone had a whole collection of disposable masks and she accidentally spilled it all out on the sidewalk. But I was like, oh man, you bought all those masks and you're gonna have to throw them away over time. By now, you know someone or a company locally who makes a reusable cloth mask that you can have. So you have your one mask for this entire pandemic situation. It makes more sense, you know, for your wallet and yeah, just mostly for your wallet. But just thinking about something that will have a long lifespan. And once it breaks or wears down, can you use it for something else? Can you turn it into something else in your life that, like a secondary, you know what I mean? Like finding new purposes and for items that you already have. Okay, one of the R's is recycle. Move this. So recycle what you can't, refuse, reduce, reuse, repair. This is a last resort because as we've learned, especially in the last year, about how much the recycling economy is funded by plastic companies so that they can maintain the facade that they're doing something good. You know, there's recycling available for your plastic. Really, it's just a waste, and China does not buy our plastics anymore. So it's an economy for recycling. And when we don't have a plastics buyer, there's nowhere for it to go except landfill or incineration. Like in Spokane, we have incineration. You're lucky if you can get your number 1 and number 2 plastics recycled. Right now, we don't have a glass buyer either, which is another big thing. So glass is not being recycled in Spokane, in Washington State. Yes, paper, yes, tin and aluminum cans, right? Those things are being recycled. But if paper in the process of being transported to the recycling place gets wet or shredded, it can't be recycled. So just this idea of this being a last resort for life. Recycling shouldn't be our focus. It should be the beginning stages, refusing, reducing, and reusing. And we should be creating more of a circular economy that lasts a lifetime, or at least hundreds of years, instead of plastic that only can be recycled a couple of times before it becomes waste and trash. So 91% of all plastic is not recycled. I used to be very religiously recycling, you know, but when I started studying about what actually happens to recycling, it really is now more of a waste. It's your brown bin and your blue bin are almost going to the same place most of the time, except for aluminum and paper. So just changing that mindset. It's still tossing, right? We're still tossing when we toss it in recycling. And that's been a big change for me in my mindset. Okay, and rot is the last one, about compost, about how nature works and how organic matter, your food scraps, can be turned into beautiful soil. And instead of, we don't have a landfill here, but a lot of places do. Any organic waste that goes into a landfill, there isn't enough oxygen for it to break down. So it creates methane, which is contributing to greenhouse gases. So in Spokane, we do have a green bin service that you can pay for if you want. They take food scraps, they take food soil, paper, and yard debris. Even they take meat and dairy products somehow. which I think is amazing. But you can also make your own compost. I just moved and I have a large backyard, and I created an outdoor compost. Like I dug a hole, I put a thing around it, and I toss all my food scraps back there. So my trash bin is for the plastic packaging that I do have in my life that's going to trash. I do recycle my tin and my paper if I have that, and then, but most of it is just organic waste. So I'm going to talk about resources. If you want to learn about composting in your own home, your life, or use the green bin service, it's like whisking away, right? But it goes towards a huge plot of land outside of Spokane, where they're turning fresh soil from all of our food waste. And I will say, I learned recently, as of July 1st or July 7th of this month, Vermont is the first state in the US to ban any organic matter, food scraps, from your garbage bin. So they're trying to funnel the state's waste into personal compost or their compost pickup system, so that they're actually creating fresh product and they're not sending this food waste scraps to their landfills or their incinerations. Yeah, so they're making changes again in the midst of the pandemic. They see we need to be radical about our process and how do we become more environmentally friendly. So that's really cool. You can look on Vermont state information about that. It would be amazing if eventually Washington state goes that way too. And I want to say, don't be fooled by bioplastics. So anything that's a green bag, it says it's compostable plastic. If you read the small print on any of these bags, it says may not be, what's the word? Like processed in your area, because these do require high heat. Yes, better because they don't use petroleum. They use like a corn or a starch to make these plastics, but it still requires a facility to break it down in high heat. You can't just throw it in your backyard compost. It won't break down. So maybe I've read some articles about coronavirus. Maybe as we go forward, we switch all our petroleum-based plastic stuff to this, and we create a actual recycling system for bioplastics. So at least we're not using petroleum-based things as we go forward for things that we can't change to reusable. But as consumers, we shouldn't be taking these types of bags. Farmers markets right now, if you see them, just avoid them. Most farmers markets are still taking reusable shopping bags. So show up with your bag. Don't be fooled by any compostable plastic that you see. Read the fine print. It requires a facility. And then ultimately, this idea that you redirect your waste instead of just all going in your garbage bin and having a super full, for us, it's a brown bin in Spokane, or a super full recycling bin. Taking most of it to your green bin. This is a worm compost. I used to have this in my house. Doesn't smell. You can look up how to make a worm composter for your house. Make fresh, amazing soil for your house plants or your garden. And then reducing your recycling, and then reducing especially your brown bin trash related situation. Okay, so specifics, again, I want to give you specific tools for the process. I think food is the biggest area to change in terms of waste. So when we figure out pandemic and how do we bring our reusable bags to the bulk bins, are starting to open up at some stores right now, like Huckleberry's. But this idea, you take your own bag, you refill your dry goods, you take your own produce bags. So this is what I do, so that you're not taking any packaging. And then you take jars, you put them at the counter at the beginning, they weigh the jar, they put the weight on your container. You fill it up with, your vinegar, your oil, what have you. And then they subtract the weight of the jar. from your purchase. So you're not paying for packaging, right? Whereas 15% of your food cost, if it's a packaged item, goes towards the packaging itself. So if you cut out the cost of your packaging, you're saving some money at least. And then taking your own reusable shopping bags as well. And then when you get home, this is a process I've been learning. You get home, you have jars. You can don't buy new jars, just use like pickle jars and whatever you have, wash them, refill. You put all your dry goods in jars, put all your liquids in jars, or any sort of container that you have that suits the product. And then it helps you because you can see the food that you have. It looks lovely just because food is beautiful by itself, no packaging in your pantry. It's amazing. And yeah, just beauty and just ease of use. It's actually really nice. And then in your fridge, these photos are not my refrigerator because I do still have like soy milk cartons and things in my fridge that are not zero waste yet. But you can store, I had to learn how to store my vegetables and fruit properly. Like tomatoes don't go in the fridge, and you should keep your fruit on the counter so it's fresh and tastes better. Fruit, vegetables go a different place. I learned about putting my carrots and celery in water, putting my herbs in water. It's a plant. So my food lasts longer, stays fresher. I don't lose as much food to rot. Yeah, there's so much information out there on how to just store food properly and save the waste of food. And then for leftovers, choosing something reusable. Tupperware you already have, or jars you already have. Beeswax wrap, if you are into that. I've never used it, but I hear it's great. Just, you don't have to waste your money on saran wrap or aluminum foil or disposable containers like Ziploc bags. Just take something you already have, you just wash it, and then you don't have money going down the drain all the time. Another big thing is when you're out and about. Again, we're in a pandemic. A lot of places don't allow you to bring your reusable coffee cup. But I think with the research and time, they'll go back to that. But for me, I keep in my purse actually like a foldable spoon or spork thing and some telescopic straws, because then wherever I'm at, I just always have a utensil, or I always have a straw if I need it. If I know I'm going somewhere, I prepare. So before pandemic, when I would go to a restaurant, I would take some containers for leftovers if I had them, or I would keep a big bag with me if I knew I was going out for a day trip and we were going to pick up some food on the way. Just bring utensils, bring napkins, cloth napkins, bring my own coffee cup. And then again, in the midst of the pandemic, this company called Muse, they are based out of San Francisco, so here in the US, Hong Kong, and another location. I don't think where. I think Singapore. They were just, a group of people were like, wow, the takeout trash that has increased because of the pandemic. We're so frustrated with it. So they've started this company that partners with restaurants so that you have a reusable box or reusable cups for your food. You get your takeout, your delivery, and then somehow through the process, they pick it up as well, and they wash and sanitize so that restaurants have on hand these reusable to-go items. And they're trying to implement this, more widespread, which I think is great because, again, the pandemic, and if restaurants are concerned about individuals bringing their own things because they don't know if they washed it or not, well, now they have a company that they know has these standards for cleanliness and will be washed. I think it's amazing. Check out their website. This is new as of a couple of months ago, this business. And then, with takeout too, I've been doing a lot of takeout in the last few months to support local. My life is crazy, all of those things. And one of the restaurants I get food from, instead of styrofoam, we should just be moving away from styrofoam or plastic-based to go. They use the paper compostable, non-plastic lined, right? Some of those paper boxes are lined with plastic, so not those, but the actual compostable paper options. They line it with aluminum foil if it's a wet product, right? Or like a chow mein or something. And so what I end up with is something that's compostable, can go in my green bin, my compost, and the aluminum foil, which for me, I guess if you wash it, I think you can recycle it, but I have to look into specifically what to do with the aluminum foil. But at least we're not using plastic or especially styrofoam, for sure. So some ideas I've been thinking about, how do we change systems but still remain in the pandemic we're in, you know, and stay healthy. Let's talk about the bathroom. This was my shower 4 years ago. Just so much plastic product, the plastic loofah thingies, plastic razors that only last so long, you throw them away. And then this is what my current bathroom looks like. So I use shampoo bars, I use bar soap, just making little changes like that. Or if you don't like shampoo bars, you can refill containers of shampoo at Huckleberry's at Main Market. You can get products, liquid products as well. And then switching from plastic toothbrushes to bamboo toothbrushes, which are compostable. Switching from to toothpaste tabs. So I've started this process and they're great. It comes in a glass jar and you can just get refills in paper boxes for these little tabs. You chew them up, it makes toothpaste, you brush your teeth, it's great. And one of the greatest things I changed to is a stainless steel safety razor. So you buy this handle, it's maybe $15 to $30 depending on what you're going for. And each razor blade is 10 cents each. It lasts however long, and I keep a tin can, and anytime I need to replace my blade, it goes in the tin can. It's going to take me years to fill up that tin can with razor blades, and I haven't bought any razor related anything for 3 years now. I get a better shave, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's so much easier. And then when that tin can's full, I'll take it to the recycling facility, you know, labeled razors, be careful, and they can recycle that. Menstrual cups, save your money. Oh my gosh, I don't spend any more money on those things. Cloth pads for washing your face. Washcloths are reusable cotton rounds that you can wash. Again, you can make a lot of your own products or buy bar soap, etc. There's if you just look for the resources for zero waste alternatives to X, whatever you're looking for, there's something out there. Cleaning. I used to have so many products. Now all I have is a little basket. I have one spray bottle with diluted white vinegar and one spray bottle with diluted Castile soap that I refill at the bulk section. Cloth rags, and really that's all I clean with. Vinegar works great to clean your mirrors and windows too. And in my kitchen, I have one of these brushes with wood, and I just replaced, you can just replace the head. I just did that after 2 years. And then I have a stainless steel scrubby, so it's stainless steel, and that's what I use. I have those two things. I don't use plastic scrubbies in the kitchen. So there's alternatives, and again, it just simplifies. I don't spend money anymore on cleaning products except the occasional refill on vinegar or refill on Castile soap, and it's healthier for my family, for myself. Laundry, you can refill containers. I actually have like a pitcher that you would use for beverages. I refill it with liquid detergent at Huckleberry's or at Main Market. There's also soap nuts. I've tried using it. They work pretty well. And you can just compost them afterwards. And then in your dryer, no more dryer sheets, just buy a pack of wool or alpaca dryer balls, and you put them all in the dryer at once. It reduces the drying time, and I don't buy dryer sheets anymore. So it's so much better. Or line dry, you know, I'm trying to line dry more often. Just thinking about circular economy with our clothing and our items that we buy secondhand. It's already in the system. If we buy secondhand, we are using circular economy. So again, we're in a pandemic and thrift stores have been closed. Very tricky. But there is this community, it's called Buy Nothing. It's on Facebook, and there are Facebook groups that you can join. They have them all over the US and I think just North America as a whole. You apply for your neighborhood, like I live in this neighborhood, they verify, okay, it's real, you join your Facebook group. People are posting all the time, free stuff, giving it away. Nothing to sell, just giving. So that's been going on during the pandemic. I give away things I don't need. People exchange goods. Oh, my garden has extra tomatoes, you know what I mean? Come over and pick, or I'll set some bags on the porch if you want some. It's amazing. It's community-based. Again, it's about being resourceful in our community. So look up your Buy Nothing Facebook group for your neighborhood. And I'm talking about children. I have a 2-year-old, and a lot of children's everything secondhand is almost brand new. It's nice. Everything is secondhand for my daughter. And then huge discussion is about diapers, right? And with my daughter, I learned about elimination communication. What it is how the world functioned before we had disposable diaper manufacturers. And just that you have a natural instinct, you know how to tell people you need to use the restroom, like you have control over yourself. And eventually with time, it's easier for children to communicate that. So she was I used cloth diapers, and she was out of diapers in the day just before she was 2 years old. And most of the time she was using the toilet already. And then shortly after 2, she was totally done with diapers. I am so thankful I learned about that, because it saved me so much time and money just washing diapers, you know. So I have information about that if you're interested, or just look up elimination communication with your babies and save yourself time. I'm so thankful for learning about that. School and office, okay, just thinking again about something that lasts a long time, like a stainless steel stapler, or finding secondhand things, or paper-based things, like using pencils that are made from recycled newspaper, or paper-based folders, or a reusable pen. You know, just thinking away from plastic to something either reusable, or like if it's a pencil or temporary use, that can be composted at the end of its life cycle. And thinking about holidays and decorations, you know, instead of buying wrapping paper or buying decorations that are fake, just using nature, or using brown paper for your wrapping, or furoshiki, which is Japanese style of wrapping with cloth. It's beautiful. So I do this, you know, just thinking about decorating with something that's not plastic, and saves you again money. Don't buy wrapping paper. Get some paper bags or some cloths that you have, or stockings, like Christmas stockings. It's so genius. It's reusable forever and special, right? Just changing those habits. Parties and gatherings. Okay, we're in a pandemic. We can't have open buffets. Again, what do we do? You know, it's just a conversation we have to keep having as we navigate it. But for my parties, I always do like an open buffet, and I usually just do finger foods, so I don't need utensils. People get a reusable plate, cloth napkin, reusable cups. I ask friends if I need to borrow extra plates or what have you. So no disposable single-use forks and plates and all the things. Then I don't spend money on that. I can spend money on the food, or spend money on the party, and just decorate with nature. So there isn't a huge trash thing at the end of the party. Just some time washing dishes with family. Yeah, good times. And just some tips as you look into going zero waste or reducing your waste, wherever you're at in that journey. So first, examine your trash bin. Look at what's going into your bin every week, or you're recycling every week, or if you have a separate compost, use what you already have. So if you already have jars, even if they're ugly, pickle jars, just use them. That's the point of zero waste, not buying new things. Take your time. Zero waste is not like, I'm changing this week. I've been doing it for almost 3 years, and I'm still changing habits. So it takes time to replace, to change habits. When you run out of those plastic toothbrushes, next time you buy a toothbrush package, buy the bamboo toothbrushes that come in paper. Just change habits with time. And for me, this is a big one: be an owner versus a consumer. So this idea of pride of ownership of items, taking care of them, investing in things that will last instead of just throwing. And it's about progress, not perfection. So again, there is a system set up. Plastic industry wants us to take their plastic, and so they can make money off of packaging. So some of that's out of our control. We can lobby and join like 350 spoke. It's this amazing Facebook group you can join on Facebook. It's about making political changes to how things are run to be more environmentally friendly. But individuals, we have our lives, we have things to deal with, we have jobs, we have families. And then use your consumer power to vote. Don't buy or take things, refuse those things, and that is a vote for something. You said, no, I don't want that. Let's change this process. So I love this quote. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. Just trying, small changes. In Spokane now, there's this organization called Rehabit. They do educational workshops, help with tours of waste management, personal consultations for your home, your business, organization, to help you go zero waste in whatever sphere you're in. So check out their website. They have on there also pictures of Spokane's bulk sections and learning about where you can find plastic-free alternatives. Recommend that. Spokane has the Master Composters and Recyclers program. You can look up what they're doing now. They always do instruction about how to compost. If you want to make a worm bin that goes in your apartment, it's totally possible. And they also teach about just all forms of compost that are available to us. Some businesses in Spokane that offer like these stores that have bulk sections, and you can find more package-free options. And then some businesses that carry like personal care, shampoo bars, personal care, makeup that's, packaged in paper or tin, reusable tins. So there are resources here in Spokane. And then community, right? So on Facebook, there's a Spokane Zero Waste Facebook page. Please join the group, and you can ask questions or get information from people in the area who care about this. And then your Buy Nothing group for your neighborhood, find that. I love my Buy Nothing group because, if I have something I don't need and I can't sell it, someone can just come pick it up off my doorstep, or I can put out, I need this, does anyone have it, and just get it for free. Just exchange of goods for free, like a community. I love it. On the Zero Waste Facebook page under files, I created this document that shows like most of the stores in Spokane with bulk sections and what's available in those bulk sections. So you can see like what kinds of beans do they have available, what types of rice, what types of candy, what types of, so you can see also like what types of shampoo are available, liquid shampoo. So I put this together, and it's under the files page on the Facebook group. And I love this. The true cost of plastic is the future. So we're seeing the effects of climate change in a very real, crazy way right now. And plastic is part of that process of the damage. And I care more about it now because I have children and I feel responsible for what I'm doing in that process. Okay, well.